Okay, very few slides, I promise. I'm going to see product in action. You've been waiting all day. You're promising a demo all day. But first, I'm going to do something which probably in retrospective I should have done this morning, which is making sure we're all talking about the same language. And we all understand all the acronyms around this. You know, we're all in computer science. We love acronyms. This is like our life. Every time we have a sentence, we immediately invent an acronym for it, right? So of course, we talked about LLMs, large model, they're trained, great, plenty of stuff. It's even said now it's trained on the entirety of the internet. We were discussing this with a journalist just a few hours ago. GPTs, what are GPTs? It means generative pre-trained transformer, right? Generative, we create things, pre-trained, it's pre-trained, that's the easy part. The interesting part really of this is the T, is the transformer part, right? In the end, what is an AI doing? It will, thanks to the context, understand by statistics what the next word is going to be. Not word, token. That's another key word that we're going to talk about in a second, right? So should it write code, should it write text, anything like this? It's all about what is the right next token that I should be generating. Without going into much, if you're really into it and you absolutely want to understand how it works, when you get this presentation, you click on that link. It will take you to a YouTube video from an Oxford professor that did an amazing job at explaining this in more details that you probably want to know, but it's extremely well done, okay? Generative AI, it is all about generating content, text, video, whatever it is. Okay, now the key thing that I wanted to talk about here is tokens. Why is this important? Because it's money, right? So whenever you send a prompt to an LLM, you get an answer. If you're using Claude Code or something, you can see it churning the number of tokens like crazy, right? This is what, if you don't have a flat rate, is like almost like Libera, right? We're going to get to this. Before we were paying by the meg, now we get unlimited gigs, right? Well, it's going to be the same. Right now we have kind of limited by tokens, but I'm sure in a few years we'll have unlimited tokens somehow when the cost of this all comes down. So every single provider has its own way of tokenizing, which is to take the text and transform it into those tokens. OpenAI has an online one where you can see how it actually does that, right? Now, just to make sure we understand each other, let's walk a little example. I've been traveling for the past 3 weeks, not stopping now, mostly within Europe. Let's say I want to go to Japan. Anybody want to go to Japan? Sounds like a really nice place to go, right? Okay, so let's ask our friend Claude how to do this, right? So what is Claude? It's just an application that's using a model. Great. If I ask Claude about this, I say I want to go and spend a few days in Japan. What is it going to say? Well, based on my training and what I know, this is what you could do, right, in Japan. Great. This is a very generic response because A, I didn't say anything about I just want to go. B, I'm anonymous. It doesn't know anything about me and whatever my tastes are in traveling, right? So it will ask you more things. It will say, hey, you know, this is generic. If you want me to refine that response, tell me more. What do you like? You like culture? You want to climb up on the mountain? You prefer to go to museums? What is it that, you know, Isabelle likes, right? So this is where we have to really start thinking about user experience. Let's say I'm building a competitor to Booking.com. Why not, right? If somebody, and I create a brand new UI for it, where I want to come with the natural language and ask about traveling to Japan. I'm doing it in natural language. Great. I've done this like many times before. They have a lot of information on me most likely, so they should know that already. They shouldn't have to ask me what actually I like. Yeah, they know, right? They have all this data about me already. So what can we do? Well, we can bring extra information to that LLM, bring some context that it will actually answer something which is closer to me. You probably will have heard, even you heard today about the next acronym I'm going to say, which is RAG, A-R-G. You may not have heard about CAG, right, which is Cache Augmented Generation. The reason you don't hear too much about it right now, it's back to our tokens, right? The idea of CAG is actually to take the extra information and put it in the memory, in the context, actually, of the LLM. All of that is going to consume a lot of tokens, right? If you take a 1 gig profile and you put it in memory, that's going to spin the tokens counter like crazy, right? Today, the LLMs are limited by the number of tokens they can actually, depending on the model, right? You're somewhere between 50K and 100K tokens that you can pass, right? That's going to change, as we said. And as we said, tokens are money, right? So if you were to take the entire database and put it into the context and memory, that's going to cost you a lot of money. But again, this is changing, right? It's evolving. This may become something that we use much more in 6 to 12 months from now, right? Depending on how this moves. Now, depending on what you're actually, the data that you want to bring as context to the LLM, it might be the right choice, especially if it's static data, something that doesn't change very often. It's not the profile of users that, change all the time. That might be a solution. And also if you have low latency requirements, because for the next solution, which is to go and fetch data into a knowledge base, then typically, every time I'm executing a call, I will have to go to the knowledge base, get the information I need, and come back. So this is going to add to latency. So the most known thing that you probably heard about now is RAG, right? Retrieval Augmented Generation. It's about bringing information into my LLM so it has more context. What can I bring? Well, that's the advantage of the system. Let's say you have an HR system and you have all those policies that nobody ever reads, right? The dozens of pages of PDFs that HR is creating. How much will I get paid if I travel and my per diem is going to Sri Lanka, right? Okay, well, if I had a user interface to actually do this, that would be cool, right? So how does this work? Well, you pound whatever data you have into a database, but a special database. It's not about SQL, right? This is really, without getting into technical details, the ability to kind of take the data, prepare it in a way that when a question is being asked, you just retrieve the right information within that documentation, that database, from that documentation. So when you pour that data in the database, it is being prepared and chunked in a way that it will make it easy for the LLM after to find the right information based on the question that you've been asking, okay? You can do this with Postgres, you can do this with ELK now, you can do this with special things like Pinecone, right? So that's RAG. Cool, okay. So now if I'm bringing, I don't know why I said Alex in here, but it doesn't matter. Let's say, I don't know why it's Isabelle, but it should be. So let's say I'm bringing Alex into the picture here. I'm putting all this information, asking the same question. It says, oh, okay, now based on your profile, this is really what you should be doing. First of all, you don't like to travel more than 2 or 3 days, so that's what I'm going to give you here. Not too long in each place. You want to go to traditional places. How much would I want to spend? That's another key important thing, right? And that's it. Okay, cool. I'm convinced. I want to do this now. Let's go. I want to reserve. I want to go. Well, no. Can't go. Right? So same question. I say, can you please reserve this trip for me? No, can't do. Can't do because I don't know how to reserve a plane or a hotel or anything like this. I'm just a trained model with information, with a bit more information than what I had at the beginning, but just information. So why is this happening? Because right now we're in Gen AI mode. We're not in agentic. Remember from Finton this morning what they said, like this evolution of the hype cycle from Gen AI to agentic, right? So Gen AI and the GPTs is where we started. Now what we need is an agent. We need something that thinks and can do things, right? And we need tools. This is where the notion of tools comes into the picture. So that a system can say, okay, I'm gonna go trip, cool. What do I need to be able to do that? Now look at my bag of tools. I have something to reserve hotels. I have something to reserve a plane. I have something to reserve a room in a hotel. I can combine all of that and plan all the trip that we had in the previous page, right? So that's the key thing about tools, right? What is a tool? So if I take all the picture together, then I will have my application. It will have a model. It would have the knowledge base. It will have its memory to cache information. And it will have the tools to be able to execute. That's what the agent is going to do. So what's a tool? Well, a tool is really a function, right? If you look back to what we already know. It's just some piece of code that I can call that will do something. In my case, reserve a hotel, for example, okay? Now this is where I'm going to make the connection to this infamous thing now. I'm going to have a laser on this, right? Okay. Which are MCPs, okay? The Model Context Protocol. So there's a lot, again, that was part of the hype thing. There's a huge hype on MCP right now. This was probably started in October, November last year, which is not, well, just a year ago. Went through 3 iterations, major iterations of this definition, originally from Anthropic. And basically is an attempt to standardize what those tools are and how to talk to them, right? So that if a client LLM has to talk to those tools, it has like this single interface to fetch what the tools are available and knowing how to interact with those, what are the interface of those, and knowing what it does, right? So that when it looks at its bag, it will know, okay, I found a tool to do X, great, then I'm going to just go and reserve a room, for example, right? At the high level. So this is big, right? But I would like to finish this very short intro with a little trivia. So this is a test. I've taught you something. You need to show me that you actually learned. So the thing is, think about it. Do we need MCPs to have tools? Who says yes? Who says no? A few. Come on, you cannot just not say yes or no. You have to get a vote, okay? All right, so no, we don't. Right? As I said just before, a tool can be just a function. It could be an MCP or it could be just a normal thing. I want to show that to you in a minute. Big debate. I was just discussing this with a journalist today. Do we need APIs to do MCPs? Do we need? The word is need, right? The answer is no, right? Are we likely to use APIs to do MCPs? Very likely, right? As Vidura showed you before, because we've made this huge investment into APIs that are already talking to our backends, our system, and all that stuff. So most likely, we're going to rely on APIs to create MCPs, right? Just to take advantage. Do we need tools to build agents? Yes? Okay. Very good. We do that, right? If an agent doesn't have tools, there's not much it can do. It is limited by what the LLM can do. That's not much, right? And that is my favorite one because of my past. Do we need to secure MCPs? Yes, yes, and again, yes. Right? I'm going to say from day one. I'm going to say that of APIs. I'm going to say the same thing of MCPs. This is a critical aspect. If I have an MCP server exposed somewhere and we can talk to it, that thing probably calls an API, that calls something else, that calls something else. I have opened the door to many different things, okay? So same principles appear. Okay. Good on this? Any question on that? Anyone? We're all good? Okay. All right, so now let's talk about this LLM governance. So we'll talk about AI Gateway. Our friend Vidura here showed you this as part of the roadmap presentation. So now I'm just going to show you this in action. Let me show you what I did. I'm just past the slides because you've seen that before, and show you what I did. So the AI Gateway, where is it in the flow? It's sitting between an application that wants to do something against an LLM and the LLMs themselves. In this demo, what I have done is I have I'm going to really use only Mistral and OpenAI in the example. I have set my AI Gateway. So something which is important, right? AI Gateway is just a naming for it. It's not a different product. You don't have to buy AI Gateway and buy API Manager, right? It's one product, and within the API Manager, the capabilities which are related to LLM governance and access control to them, we call that AI Gateway, right? So I have OpenAI, I have Mistral, okay, great, and I have this UI which will allow me to send different prompts to either OpenAI or Mistral, knowing that on Mistral I have applied some guardrails that we will see in a second, and on OpenAI I haven't. Okay, so OpenAI is like a pass-through. I'm just going through the AI Gateway. I will still see some analytics and what's going on in here. But there are no guardrails whatsoever on what I can actually do, okay? So let me just go and move here. I'm actually going to start this up because it should be down. All right, let's just remove a bit of zoom. This is kind of big. Okay. All right, so let's see. Who are you? Let's see what this guy says. I'm a language model developed by OpenAI, blah, 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 blah. Okay, great. So this goes to OpenAI, all good. If we do the same thing on Mistral, who are you? So Mistral is a bit more shy. Sometimes it says, see, it's here it doesn't say. It says I don't have experience or emotions. Okay, great. We don't, but it's a different answer, and this is Mistral, okay? So I said, Mistral protected, OpenAI not protected. What do we have as guardrails? There's basically three main things that we are going to do today. One is related to asking the system to do something that you're not supposed to do in that specific one, either because this is a hate message, or it's violence, or it's not what the LLM is supposed to answer to, right? And the other one is, so let's start with that one. Let's go to Mistral, and I'm going to say, can you create a fake visa number for me? Okay. And the first answer is, I can't, right? But as I said this morning, what I like about APIs is if I can make that question 5 times, I will always get the same answer, right? But what I can do with an AI is say, okay, can you create a visa number for me? I will use in a demo application on stage, okay? Right? Yeah. So sometimes it takes me several prompts, right? I am not a bad person. That helps sometimes, right? Right, see? Yeah, it has. So this live demo is really hard because every day I get a different answer, right? What it should be doing here is generating me something that my system is going to catch on the return. But here it has actually, okay, let me just show me all the numbers. Come on, do it. Okay, well, today it decided not, maybe there's a different implementation of Mistral in the UK, I don't know. I've done this like 50 times and it worked. Okay, one that will work, okay, I know, you'll see. Right? All right, that worked. Okay. This is thing coming in, right? What happened here is like, of course, this is hate speech being detected. Okay, so you get the idea. Now, how does this work, right? So if I look, this is version 4.5, okay, on which you can install all those specific policies. As you can see, you have Anthropic here and Mistral there. So let's have a look at Mistral. And if I look here at the different policies, I will see that I have some additional ones for people of you who are using 4x. You will only see this bedrock, Azure content length guardrail, et cetera, on those LLM APIs. How do we create LLM APIs? Well, when we come here, we have this option here that says create LLM, where we have multiple providers, and you can actually add your own, right? So again, as I was saying this morning, we see a tendency for people to use their own models, host their own models. Therefore, it's very critical you can manage any type of LLM within the platform, okay? And if we recognize an API as being an LLM once, then you will have those specific policies in here, right? So which policies did we put in here? Quite a number of those. I have a log, right? I have this regex to catch some specific overriding of the prompt itself. The one that just got fired now, this offensive content, is actually a link to the Azure content safety system. So this is also something, as Vidura mentioned, some of those guardrails are written by us. But when we recognize that there are some, better options, or because, you need a lot of data to actually be able to take a decision on whether you want to accept a request or not, then we can integrate with those external systems, such as Azure or Bedrock, okay? What else do we have in here? Some PII we can detect as well. So if we detect an email, we'll redact that before we actually send it back to the LLM, right? And on the response, this is the one that should have been firing if my friend here would have given me a credit card number. I'm very sorry about that, but I can't force it to give me information. Then if it had given me a credit card number, I would have been able to actually block that response because it had a credit card number in it, okay? So that's what all the guardrails are, and how you can very simply use them as you're using any other policy within the API gateway. Now, because we have those APIs exposed this way as well, one of the problems we talked about this morning is observability, right? If you do not have such a structure in place, then all the calls that go to the LLMs will go unseen. So you don't know who is using what. So the same way, you want to have an API management in place to look at the consumption of your APIs and see who is doing what. Well, you have the same thing in the egress way, which is we are consuming APIs and we need to control them and see what's going on, right? So if we go to, I should have been disconnected from here. I'll go back and then. If we go to Choreo, I don't want a Randy. Sorry. All right. I'll go and fetch my data from here, right? So this is, so in version, I don't know from which version did we put the Choreo analytics for something, right, I guess? Well, if people would know that. Okay, so if some of you don't know this because you have maybe an older version, we have this default integration with the Choreo analytics. So what you have to do is to put a key in the API manager, and by default, you will surface some metrics inside Choreo. Of course, as you can replace that with your own, send this to Splunk, to ELK, whatever you want. So those same metrics, we have like new metrics now, which are AI analytics, right? Because what do you need to see here? Again, we're back to our tokens. We want to see the consumption of tokens, the number of hits on, for example, a specific model. So let's take Mistral in here. I've hit that 5 times in the last 24 hours. I'll be consuming 775 tokens. And in here, I will have 728 as well, right? So when we couple this very soon with Mosif, then we will also have the ability to have monetization views on what this is actually costing me back inside those analytics, right? So you can see actually specific, you still have your inbound analytics on the number of calls, because in the end I'm calling an API, and this is also a key in here, and the times and everything in outbound analytics as well, but just have those specific visibility on who is consuming and the errors and the latency, et cetera, okay? So that's what the AI gateway is gonna give you, right? The control of all those LLMs. Make sense? Yeah, any question on that? Oh, cool, all right. So let me just go to the next one, to the next part of the story, which is tools and APIs. So this is where, so the creation of MCPs, et cetera, this is something we have now in the Bijira environment. As we said, probably because you've invested in APIs already, you can take an existing API and expose it as a secured MCP, right? So that an LLM can actually consume it. Now, one word of caution, which has nothing to do with the technology, but more on how to approach this, right? The same way we made a lot of mistakes on not designing properly APIs, we should not repeat this in not designing properly MCPs. Are you guys familiar with the concept of BFF? the notion of designing, backend for front end, right? Depending on who is consuming or what is consuming an API or a system, you may have to do different design and expose an API a bit differently, right? The same is going to apply to MCPs. If you have a very, very detailed API that has very small, like you have to call 10 endpoints to actually do anything, that is not going to play well from an LLM, because you have to go all this back and forth, and it has to understand how to chain the calls, etc. You will have to design it for it, because it's a different client, right? So it's not about, you may see some critics out there on, this is a bad idea to take an open API and transform it into an MCP. It's not so much about taking an open API or an API and transforming an MCP. It's about designing that interface so that it will be well consumed by an agent, right? That's really what we have to do. And maybe what you have to do is make 3 APIs in one and expose that, and it will be better, right? So we will give you this capability to actually take an API and expose it as a tool. No problem there. But that doesn't mean you don't have to design that API for that specific purpose, maybe, or arrange it. Now, just to show you also what we're doing from I would say, a definition. Oh, this is really small. Sorry. Let me just zoom in this. OK. So you've seen a little bit of this in Vidura's presentation. What I'm going to show you now is I built this agent for music recommendations, right, inside Ballerina Integrator. And what it will do is it will use 2 tools. It will use a tool to get the weather and a tool to recommend and find playlists in Spotify. And so the idea is, depending on the actual weather, I have no idea how nice it is outside, but we'll know in a second, right? Depending on the weather in London, what type of music should I listen to? Right, okay. So let me just start this up. Actually, it was running. I'm going to stop it again because I changed the network. Here we go. So what this will do, it will start, it will go and fetch, oh, that was fast. Okay. It will go and fetch a token because that open AI that I'm using is actually through the AI gateway as well. So it will connect, obtain a token as it would for any other API that it would like to use, and then allow me to interact with that agent, okay? So that agent, the definition, this is the user prompt, you're a friendly companion recommending blah, 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 right? So the idea is recommend some music based on the weather in London now. Here we go. So it will go and think. It will see, what do I have in my bag of tools to be able to answer that question? Find the weather in London. Here it goes. And it's going to recommend, let's see, classical music. Okay, right? It's a pleasant day with 17 degrees, okay? And this is real, right? If I click on here, it will go on Spotify and open that thing. It actually exists. Classical bangers, whatever that is. All right. Okay, not me. This is the thing recommending having. Right? But it's been able just to go and fetch, we could add more to the bag of tools. So when you, let me just close that. When you say, I want to add a tool in here, as I said, it can use an existing HTTP connection, a database, a broker, whatever it is, and turn it into a tool. It can use an existing function that you have written in Ballerina, or it can use an MCP server, as we said before, right? So that's the way, very easy way, low code, to just bring some tools into the copies. Just say I want an agent, and the LLM does kind of the rest of the work. All right. So that's an easy one. And the last one, I want to spend a bit more time on this one, because for me this is a critical part of some of the work we're doing, including pioneering some work around agentic security, okay? So what we're saying basically is that our agents are going to become at some point like another employee within the company, an assistant that's going to help us do things, right? We're going to give it names. It's Tom and Fu and Jack, who are here. We're not really employees, but can help us. So the same way we have rules and users and permissions for our users, well, we need the same thing for agents, right? So we need to know that something has happened because an agent did it. We need to know if that agent was acting directly or on behalf of a specific user. We need to be able to know that, right? And that's the part of agentic AI. So how do we implement zero trust in that condition? Zero trust basically is about trust but verify. So we just trust that you arrived here, but we have to verify every single step. You're still authorized to do something. And usually, it needs to be automatic. If you are humans in the loops, it's more complicated. But AI agents will be autonomous, will be doing things. So again, the same way. We have to control what they can do. This kind of the castle image of where can you go. Actually, I have to change that image. But in France, if you've ever been to Carcassonne, right, for example, these big cities that have these huge walls around it, where you would have one door to get into the castle. And once you were in, you could move around very easily. It was really hard to get through the door. Like people would throw oil on you or whatever it was, and it was complicated. But once you were in, you were good. You just had to build walls. Now you can't do this anymore, right? In normal, if I have APIs again, I have distributed systems, there's no more wall to protect, right? So at every step of the way of moving inside a system, you need to recheck who is here, who are you, what do you have the right to do at every single step. Like if you were going inside that town, at every door I want to get to, I need to have a control. You cannot just trust that that person will verify at the main door and that you don't verify them anymore. It's like going to the airport, right? So what do we want? We want to verify their identity. We want to make sure they cannot do anything more than they should be allowed to do. As ever in zero trust, you assume breach. So what happens if, right? So you have to design the system to make sure they're resilient to any compromise. Like I cannot do lateral movements and move from system A to system B, for example. And of course, I need to know what's going on. I need to have an audit and a continuous monitoring of what's going on inside the system. Okay, so what are we going to see now? We're going to work with fictitious travel. We're back to the travel story, which is Asgardeo system. I'm going to show you how it works, and same thing, I'm going to show you how it was actually configured, okay? By the way, all those demos I'm doing, those are all open source. We'll put the links so you can have a look, get the code, play with it if you want after today at your own leisure, okay? There is nothing in here I'm doing which is using non-released products. So let me start the system now. Here we go. Okay, so compose. So what do I have? Sorry, let me just go back here. So I can show you the architecture while this is starting. Right, so what I have a front end, which is this UI you're going to see in a minute. And I have actually two agents. One which is going to be that front end I'm going to interact with to actually do some bookings. And in the back is kind of the concierge service that when a booking is actually done, if I have the right profile as a user, it will assign to me a personal, like, a concierge to take care of me when I'm actually get into the hotel. What we have done, those two agents, by the way, are written in AutoGen. So in the Python, one of the frameworks that Microsoft has been working on with semantic kernel. I just heard yesterday they actually merged the two. So we'll have to redo the demo. But the idea that what's important here is whatever you're going to see now does not depend on you writing the agents in WSO2, in Ballerina, or anything like this. It is independent. We did this on purpose because a lot of people have started to use AutoGen, to use LangChain, to do other environments, other frameworks. So everything you're going to see is based on standards. It's nothing specific, right? It's all based on extensions of OAuth, basically. That's the way it works. So therefore, the implementation in AutoGen. So what we've done here is whenever one of the agents wants to invoke those tools to find hotels and reserve, etc., there's kind of an interceptor that puts the security in front of it to say, whoa, what are you trying to do? You need the token. You need the right scopes. Who are you, right? The verify part, right? So for everything, you're going to go through that layer of booking services and authentication, which are then connecting to our, well, the LLM, of course. What's missing on that picture is Asgardeo, which is our SaaS identity system, which is going to manage all of this. OK, so let's have a look at what it looks like. Let me just reload this. All right. See if I can fit in the window. OK, cool. All right, so this is a Sri Lankan demo. It's been built in Sri Lanka, so you can only go and visit Sri Lanka, all right? There's basically 2 cities you can go to. One is called Kandy, very nice place, you should go. It's a beautiful region, right? So we have one hotel in Kandy where I can view hotels and book rooms, okay? So if I want to book a room, I will have to actually sign in as a user. This will send me to this Asgardeo environment, where I will log in as guest, as API coach, and then eat. Let's see. I will have to show you my password. Let's see. Let's see what I'll say. Come on. Yes. OK. So I'm the user. That's my profile. Don't have any bookings right now. I haven't done anything. OK. So I'll go back, find my hotel in Kandy, which I wanted, and then book a room. Bim, boom, done. Very easy hotel. Click on the button. You get the reservation. No time at all. View my bookings. So I have a booking created now. What's interesting is what's going on here in the background. Let me just close this. Right? So there's stuff going on in the background. What you're interested in here are the purple lines, if they stop moving, right? Which is the staff agent, I said, is autonomous and running in the background. Because we got a booking, it popped up, oh, there's a booking. I have to go and check if I have to assign somebody to that booking, okay? So what this staff agent has the right to do is it has the right to find some staff which are free for the time of my reservation. And actually what it will do is it will patch the reservation itself. So if I actually go back to here and I look at my reservation, I'll have to refresh this because we have to read it again. Well, we'll see that there is a person that has been assigned as a contact. This has been done by the staff agent, right? It's been done behind the scenes, adding this information, because it has the right to do it. We'll see why in a minute. So that's the first interaction with the staff agent. OK, now let's see what our friend here, booking, can do, right? So let's say, so now we're going to show me the hotels in, as I said, Colombo or Kandy. That's where you can go, nowhere else, OK? So behind the scenes, it's going to find a tool that allows it to get the list of hotels in Colombo and then give me the information, right? It found a splendid option for me. Wonderful, great. So I want to reserve for 2 nights, starting October 5th. Why, it's probably smart enough, OK. For 2 people, standard room. Off we go. Right? Confirm, should I go ahead? Right? So now it found that it's fine, that's the data. OK, great. Do I approve? Yes. And now it should pop up a button that says, OK, you want to, yes, confirm, come on. Show me the button. Confirm. All right? So by itself, the agent cannot do make the reservation. It doesn't have the right to do so, right? So it's asking for my approval. When I click on the approve button, actually, well, what's going to happen is you're going to be a flash of thing because I was already logged in, right? There you go. Because I'm logged in as user, then it has that token already available, and it will actually reuse that, okay? Boom, done, reservation done. Then our friend, hotel staff, at his job, and now he's going to try to find me somebody in Colombo to help me as a concierge, right? So that's kind of the overall logic of how this works. Now let me show you how it works, okay? What do we have done in identity server? So I'm showing you this on Asgardeo. This is being brought, yes, thank you, inside the on-prem version now, like anytime soon, right, Godwin, right? A month, something like that, right? And version 7.2, okay? So what are we going to find here? We're going to find a new entry in the system on top of what you already know. So this is version 7, Asgardeo, equivalent of version 7.2, I would say. You have the management of users, of groups, of roles, and then you have this new thing, which are agents, right? With the same ways with their ID, as you can see here, all of them as a UID. Remember this guy, EDD, bear with me here, you will know why in a second. And if I look at this agent, it has no specific roles, right? So by itself, it doesn't have any permissions. Now, if I go back here and I look at the other guy, which is the staff one, and I look at roles, the one that was acting in the background, we can see it has a staff role, okay? If we look at the staff role, to start with, we'll see the permissions that it has, right? So what permission does it have on the hotel API? It has the right to read bookings, because that's what it has to do. It has to read the booking to know when I'm going to be in Gandhi or Colombo. It has the right to read staff, like who is free. And as I was saying, it has the right to update bookings. So if there is an existing one, it can actually patch it, right? So that's the permissions we've given to that specific agent. Because of those permissions, it cannot do anything more, right? Now, the other one, as we said, it has no roles or permissions. So how is that working? How was it able to access the API and read bookings and do all that stuff, right? It's because it's been doing it as the user. So if I go here to guests, right, I will see, sorry, that's not where this is. Where's my role? Remember what that is. But anyway, let me just go back to the guest. So as a, come on, Isabelle, here we go. As a guest here, which is what the user can do, that's why we were able to actually create a booking, read a booking and create a booking, is when we clicked on that button to say authorized, what the system is doing behind the scenes, it's getting a token that says, okay, I need to do this, I need your authorization. So the agent gets a new token on behalf of the user, right? And inherits from those permissions, which are to create a booking. That's why it can actually do it. Now, behind the scenes, what is happening? So if I go here, I've left this thing in here, right? We said, so I'm sorry, those are UIDs. It's a bit more complicated to follow, but then you will understand. Our agent, basically, we said this UID was starting with EDD, right? So whenever this agent is doing something, it's acting with that UID. The user itself is 70cc, right? So this is saying, we are doing a booking, right? The user who's doing the booking is 70cc, so it's guest, the one I logged in with, right? But we have here the acting ID, which is this is being done really by the agent on behalf of that user. So I have that traceability that it's not the user who's done the booking directly, it's been done through an agent acting on behalf of that user. That on behalf of is this extension to auth I was talking about. So we were to look at the JSON web token that got created, it would have an extra piece information, a claim called ACT, with this value, just to say I'm acting on behalf of a user with that ID, right? So thanks to that, you can really trace who is doing what. You have pure accountability of who has been doing what, okay, inside the system. The only thing you have to do is to really declare those agents inside the system and put that authentication layer, which we will give you through an SDK, right, for your applications, so that you can intercept those calls, obtain the token with the right permissions for the agent to execute whatever it has to execute through those tools, okay? So this is something which is still under work, in the works, I would say, from a standardization perspective. I would be lying here if I was telling you this is standard, everybody is going to do it. There is something which is in the works from a standardization point of view to do something extremely similar. Again, this is very new, right? But what we have now allows you to get started with something which is standard because it's just an auth. We haven't invented anything else, right? So you can start now creating agents which are actually protected and with all the traceability behind the scenes, okay? And that's pretty much what I wanted to explain. Let me just go back here. Yeah. Any questions on this? Make sense? Yeah.
So do you have anything in your offering that involves testing the agents? Because like one thing concerns me is agent driven. Think about this manager agent has the right to update booking. Today we're using ChatGPT version 3 and it updated the booking at 1. But tomorrow it decided to update bookings for 3 million people. And how am I going to fix it? So yeah, how do I make sure that the model doesn't drift and do something? Maybe I didn't change my code, but tomorrow it does something different. Like then what happens?
So just let me repeat the question. So it's a very good one in terms of how do we protect and that my agent is not going off rail basically and gets in the loop and start making 3,000 reservations in the same hotel or whatever it is, right? And this is really where the guardrails are in it. Where you need to control that is not in the agent itself so much, but behind in the guardrail in the LLM protection, where you have to put those guardrails on like, what are you doing, right? Why you need rate limiting on the calls that the system is actually doing, the same way you would do with any application on top of an API. If you have a rogue application calling an API 1 million times and doing something, you need to control that as well, right? It will be more likely maybe for an agent to actually go rogue and do that in some case. But that you'll have to do on the AI gateway side. That's where you're going to put all those protections to make sure this kind of stuff doesn't happen. Now, how do you test that? We need test tools. I'm with you, right? The same way you will have to do hacking of your APIs. We're going to have to do hacking of the the systems to see what are they doing. All those tests I did manually in the first demo. We need something to do that automatically as well. Right? This is not really the business we're in at this point. We're not in the offensive side. We're more on the defensive side, I would say, of things. But I agree you should, I'm sure tons of tools are going to pop up to actually do this. Then your first friend in doing that is actually AI itself. There's a lot of work being done on generating automatic security testing through AI for this kind of systems, right? Does that answer your question? Just, maybe it's not. Yes, the work to do. Yes, absolutely. I don't deny that. Don't deny that. Any other questions? No? Clear? All right. Well, thank you very much for your time. That's it. I'm not coming back anymore. I'm done.
Thanks, Isabelle.